Alright mate, how you doing? Welcome back to another episode of IMO. In today's video, we are doing my Premier League predictions for the 2017-2018 season. Now this has become a regular thing I've been doing every year. You guys seem to enjoy it. Well, some of you enjoy it more than others, obviously, because some people probably get a little bit annoyed with my predictions, but all I can tell you is these are my honest and frank predictions on where I think teams will finish. Will I get them all right? Almost certainly not. Hopefully, I'll do a little bit better than I did last year though and get as many right as possible. So, let's do it. Let's take a look at my Premier League predictions for the 2017-18 season. Okay, before we start, it's important to stress the transfer window is not closed yet. There's still like 3 weeks or so left. There could be some huge new signings coming into the Premier League. There could be some huge departures that could massively impact where teams finish this season. I haven't got that information. I don't know what's going to happen in the rest of the window. So I can only make my predictions based on the transfers that have been done now and the teams as they currently look. Let's get on with the predictions, starting off with the 3 teams I think will get relegated. Every year, the recently promoted teams are easy targets for people to predict to go straight back down, and this year's certainly one of those years in my opinion. The likes of Huddersfield and Brighton have come up. You know, they haven't got a big Premier League history. They haven't made any huge signings. Can their club step up? You know, Huddersfield coming in via the playoffs, of course. I don't think they're going to, personally. I'm sorry, Brighton fans. I'm sorry, Huddersfield fans. I think it's fantastic you're in the league, and I hope you prove me wrong. I really do. But I do think they're going to go back down. However, I think Newcastle could survive. They're a massive club. They're Premier League quality for sure. Their squad, I wouldn't necessarily say is, at the moment. They've got a really good manager, and I think they're big enough to stay up, and they'll adapt well to life back in the Premier League. So I'm not actually going to tip Newcastle to go down. I'm going to go with Swansea. Now this is largely because for the last few seasons, Swansea have been like perennial strugglers, a little bit like Sunderland have been, and obviously they went down last year. I think this could be 1 year too far for Swansea, especially if they do end up losing Sigurdsson, who right now, as I make this video, still plays for them. But if they lose him, he's going to be so hard to replace for them. He's like the talisman of Swansea right now. They brought in Abraham on loan, who I think is actually decent from Chelsea, but I don't know. I have to pick someone to go down with Brighton and Huddersfield. I could be wrong, but I'm going to tip Swansea for the drop. Sorry, Swansea fans. Next up, let's look at the teams between 17th and 11th place. And I actually think this was the hardest to predict, the hardest sort of section of the league to predict this year. I've gone with Burnley to narrowly avoid the drop, finishing 17th. I think they've just got enough to stay up. They've made some okay signings, but mainly I like their manager, Sean Dyche. I think he's got what it takes to keep him up again. Could be wrong, and they're definitely going to be around that part of the table, but I say they're just going to survive. I'm actually surprised by Newcastle's lack of signings, to be honest. I thought they would have made a big splash in the window this year, really signalled their intent to stay in the league. They've got a decent manager in Rafa Benitez, certainly for a club like Newcastle anyway. Great fan base. They should have money to spend. I thought maybe we would have seen some big names come. We still could. We still could before the end of the window, of course. Their squad right now is going to be touch and go for me as to whether they stay up, but I think they've got the support behind them, and it would be a travesty for Newcastle to go back down again. I think they'll survive. I think they're going to finish around 16th. In 15th, I'm going with Crystal Palace. Okay, they've got a new manager, Frank de Boer. It's yet to be seen how good he's going to be in the Premier League. I'm not sure about him. He's made a few signings. Jairo Weideveld, the guy they brought in from Ajax, is a very promising young defender. Whether he's going to adapt to life in the Premier League straight away, I'm not sure. But it's a decent signing, I think. It's actually a pretty good coup for Crystal Palace to get him in. Likewise, Loftus-Cheek coming on loan from Chelsea. If he plays regularly, I think he could do well. He just needs a run of games in the Premier League. So I think they're reasonably good additions. They haven't lost anyone major. They lost Mandanda, but he wasn't really their first choice goalkeeper. If they can hold on to Benteke, who's been linked with a few clubs, I think they'll be okay. I don't think they're going to set the world alight. I think they're going to have a little bit of adapting to Frank de Boer's style and the league and everything under his management. But I think they'll be alright. One place above Crystal Palace, I'm going with Southampton to finish 14th. Now, every year it seems like the same story with Southampton. They sell a load of their good players. Everyone tips them to struggle, but they don't. They seem to prove people wrong. One of the reasons for that is they've got a really strong academy, and they're constantly bringing quality young players through. I'm sure we'll see that again. This year, though, there's a very good chance they're going to lose Van Dijk. He's handed in a transfer request. He could go Liverpool. Another Southampton player going to Liverpool, surely not. He could go to Chelsea. We're not sure. The reality is, I don't think they're going to be able to do as well as they did last year. They finished 8th last year, which when you consider the amount of power of their team, they were constantly losing. Like Sadio Mane had gone to Liverpool last year. They just did well. They did really well, but I can't see them doing it again. They've got a new manager. It's amazing, really, they got rid of Puel after they finished 8th, but they did. They've got this Pellegrino guy in there. We'll see how he does. But honestly, I think they're going to finish around 14th, and I'd be interested to hear from Southampton fans in the comments. Would you take that right now? If someone offered you 14th place, would you take it? In 13th place, I am going with Stoke. Since Stoke came into the Premier League, they've been pretty solid. They've never really looked like going down. I think Mark Hughes has been doing a pretty good job at Stoke since he joined them. They have lost Arnautovic to my boys, West Ham, which I know he wasn't scoring 20 goals for them every season, but I think he got the most assists for them last year, and he was one of their top goal scorers. I don't really think the players they've brought in are of a quality enough to necessarily directly replace Arnautovic. I think Darren Fletcher will do well for them. I think Kurt Zouma is a good loan addition from Chelsea. And I know they've got Choupo-Moting from Schalke as well as a striker option. This is a very Stoke signing for me. They love signing these kind of like, especially from the Bundesliga actually, because they've got Diouf from the Bundesliga as well. They love signing these strikers who look to have potential but don't necessarily set the Premier League alight. I've got a feeling Choupo-Moting could be one of those sorts of guys. Shaqiri needs to have a big year for them. Joe Allen has been pretty solid for them. I think they're probably going to sell their record signing Mbula. Basically, I think Stoke are going to be around mid-table. In 12th place, I'm going to go with West Brom. They were one of the big overachievers last season. Tony Pulis did fantastic. I wrongly predicted them to get relegated last year. I'm not going to make that mistake this year. Having said that though, I don't think they're going to match their finishing position of 10th from last season. I think they're going to be a little bit lower in 12th. They've bought in Jay Rodriguez. The other players they've bought in, they're not massive names, to be honest. They're not massive attention grabbers. They've also lost their captain, Darren Fletcher, who I mentioned has obviously gone to Stoke. So I think they'll be fine. I think the likes of Chadley and Rondon and Phillips, who had a great year last season, will all do well for them. But I don't think they're going to be in the top half. In 11th place, then the final team in the bottom half of the table for me will be Watford. Now, Watford's managerial strategy is unbelievable. They very rarely keep a manager longer than a season, even when they do what seems to be okay for a club like Watford. Now, though, they've got Silver in, who was the manager of Hull last year, who when he came in, did okay for them, wasn't able to keep them up. But having a full season in the Premier League, I think he could do a good job with Watford. I also think they've made some solid signings. Not like unbelievable players, but players that could just do well for them. The likes of Will Hughes from Derby is finally getting his chance in the Premier League. This kid with the enigmatic white hair has been talked about for so many years now. We're finally going to see if he can play at the Premier League level. Chalobah from Chelsea, another player coming from Chelsea. This one on a transfer, not on a loan. He'll reinforce their midfield. As will Tom Cleverley. He's not everyone's favourite player, but I think for Watford he'll be fine. He spent some of last season on loan at Watford anyway, so he'll find it easy to adapt to life at Watford. I think they're going to have a good year this year, Watford. I could be very wrong about this. And Watford are one of those teams which you could easily just get way off. They could have a terrible year and they could be a relegation fodder, to be honest. But I've got a feeling they're going to do okay. Maybe, just maybe, they might even keep their manager for longer than one season. So that concludes my bottom half predictions. Now it's the top half. This is where it gets really juicy. In 10th place, I'm going with Bournemouth. They had a great year last year, finishing 9th. I think they're going to be just one spot worse this season. Another solid year, keeping their Premier League status under the management of Eddie Howe, who, if he does this again and gets Bournemouth to be around the mid-table spot, surely needs to be snapped up by a bigger club. For me, they've added some really good quality in the transfer window, bringing in Begovic from Chelsea. What a signing that is in goal. Also, they've got Jermaine Defoe. Is he going to keep scoring the rate he was for Sunderland as he's getting older and older? I think he's got at least one more year left in him. If they can get him the service he needs, he's 10 goals plus minimum. Perhaps their best signing, though, was Nathan Ake from Chelsea. I'll be honest, and he spent a bit of time on loan at Bournemouth last season. I was surprised that Chelsea let him go, because if they're going to continue to play their free centre-back system, and they've already loaned out Zouma to Stoke, they need the defensive reinforcements they can get. They lost John Terry as well. I know they brought in Rudiger, and they're still linked with the likes of Van Dijk. But if they don't get Van Dijk, Ake could have been a great backup option to play in maybe some of the easier European games, the cup games. They've not gone with him. It's another player who has gone through the Chelsea loan system but hasn't been able to transcend into the first team. But that is to Bournemouth's advantage. I think he'll be solid for them. And aside from their transfers, I just really rate Eddie Howe. I think he's going to look after them again. And I think if he does have a good year again, he's earned the right to move on. In 9th place, I'm going with Leicester City. Now, everyone knew last year they weren't going to win the title again, okay? The challenge for them was to see how they could do in the Champions League. I think they did okay compared to the other English clubs at least, but also to retain their Premier League status, which at one point looked like they might lose it under Ranieri. They made the change to get rid of Ranieri, bring in Shakespeare. It was controversial. I wasn't a fan of that move at the time. I made a video about it, but Shakespeare has come in, done very well, and probably proved that he played quite a big part when they actually won the Premier League and he was part of the coaching staff. So, I think they're going to be fine this year, and I think the addition of Iheanacho up front is going to be huge. I would have loved this guy to sign for West Ham. I think he's still got the best goals to minute ratio of any player in Premier League history that has scored 10 goals or more. I think that's the stat. He is just efficient in front of goal. He's going to get chances. He's going to give them another option when Jamie Vardy's not working out. The likes of Okazaki work super hard but don't get the goals they need. If they can hold on to Riyad Mahrez, which is touch and go at the moment, I know Roma are really keen to get their hands on him. It could be huge for Leicester, and they could get a top half finish, I believe. They've also brought in Harry Mcguire from Hull City. I don't think he's an unbelievable centre-back, but I think he's good enough to stay in the Premier League. And Iborra from Sevilla is a really nice addition. He's a quality sort of defensive midfielder. The interesting thing is, though, today I'm hearing reports that Chelsea might come in for Danny Drinkwater, which, I mean, is crazy on a number of levels. But from Leicester's perspective, that would be a big loss. There's even links Chelsea could go for a double swoop for Drinkwater and for Christian Fuchs. If they do that, they've taken a lot of quality out of the Leicester team, and that would mean I probably would adjust my prediction. But as the squads look right now, I think Leicester are going to finish around 9th. In 8th place, I'm going with my boys, West Ham United. Now, last year we finished 11th, but we're only 1 point off 8th place, which was amazing considering how bad we were at the start of the season. I'm hoping we don't have as bad a start this year. We've made some unbelievable transfer signings. The start of the window was a little bit nervy for us. A lot of fans were kicking off thinking we weren't going to make any additions. We were going to have a bad window like we did last year. But we have pulled it out the bag with Joe Hart on loan in goal, Zabaleta on a free transfer for right back, Arnautovic from a Premier League rival Stoke, and of course Hernandez, Chicharito up front. I think, all being well, if we can get him the service he needs, could be 15 goals this season. So far, we haven't lost anyone major. Okay, we've released a few people, we've sold a few people, but no real first-teamers. There is a chance, if Coutinho now goes to Barcelona, because they obviously lost Neymar, that Liverpool are going to come in for Lanzini. That would be a big loss for us, I'm not going to lie, and it would put a real dampener on what's been an amazing transfer window for us so far. If we do lose Lanzini, we need to go in for someone else. We've been linked with Jack Wilshere, we've been linked with Ross Barkley perhaps. We need to make a move for someone. But right now, we haven't lost Lanzini, and right now I think our squad is much deeper in attacking positions than it has been for a long time. We're no longer reliant on Andy Carroll, who's hardly ever fit. We can have Antonio, potentially Lanzini, and Arnautovic as our sort of free players behind the striker. We also could then bring in Feghouli and Ayew. We've got options. One thing's for sure, though, there's probably more pressure on Bilic than there ever has been before, because West Ham have spent money now. If we have a slow start to the season, Bilic could be one of the first names linked with the first Premier League sacking of the year. I'm hoping that doesn't happen because I like him. Ultimately, though, I think we're going to be just off the pace for 7th place, which I think is going to go to Everton. Now, Everton have lost their main man, the big Belgian, Romelu Lukaku. That's created a void that is almost irreplaceable. You can't really fill that void. So what they've done instead is taken that money and they've just strengthened all over the pitch. Michael Keane at centre-back is a brilliant addition for Everton. I think he's going to be there for a long time. Just like when they brought Jagielka in years ago, I think he could be a stalwart of the Everton defence for a long, long time. In Jordan Pickford, they've got one of the most promising young English goalkeepers. There's a couple of Englishmen with Keane as well. It's a good way to set up the squad, and Pickford again could be at Everton for a long time as well. Davy Klaassen from Ajax is a bit more of a gamble. They spent about 27 million euros on him from the Eredivisie. Is he going to adapt? We've seen really good players come from the Netherlands before and not quite make it, like Memphis Depay, okay? Is he going to be one of those characters? It remains to be seen. They've got a lot of players, though, in that kind of attacking midfield role now, because they've also brought in, of course, Wayne Rooney, who's returned to Everton. Now, I'm anticipating that he could end up, at least for some of the season, playing as a striker. Because the only other striker they've really brought in is that Sandro guy, the ex-Barcelona striker. I'm not sure if he's going to be Premier League pace straight away. Maybe he's better than I give him credit for, but he might take a little bit of time to fit in. So they could go with Rooney up there. And if they do get Sigurdsson, who they're linked with, that's going to create an amazing competition for places in those attacking spots for Everton. But it also seems like a bit of a surplus, to be honest, especially if they don't end up playing Rooney up front, or they end up getting someone like Giroud, who they've also been linked with. So for me, that will signal someone else is going to depart from Everton, most likely Ross Barkley, who Kerman's kind of acknowledged hasn't really got a future at the club. So it'll be interesting to see where Ross Barkley goes, if he does go, if they bring in Sigurdsson. Either way, I think they're going to just fall short of permeating into that top 6, which I think is kind of locked in right now. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they have a great year. If they still had Lukaku, I'd be tipping them to get into that top 6. But losing Lukaku just means they have to change the way they play completely. Have they had enough time in pre-season to get used to that? I'm not sure, but I think they'll be there or thereabouts come the end of the season. 7th place for Everton. Now let's take a look at the top 6, starting off with 6th place. As always, it was super hard to predict the top 6 this year, guys. I could be very, very wrong here, but for me, 6th place right now, based on the squads they have, is going to Liverpool. I accurately predicted Liverpool to finish in the top 4 last year. I don't think they're going to do it this year. I think they've they've made some decent signings. I think Salah is a great addition, and they were really reliant on Mane last year. When Mane was injured or he was at the African Cup of Nations, they didn't have that same creativity. Salah's going to give them just pure energy and pace on the wing, but they might lose Coutinho. I think there's a very good chance they'll lose Coutinho. If they keep him, they're still in a great place, but they still lack a focal point of their attack, in my opinion. Origi's not a 20-goal-a-season striker. Daniel Sturridge was. I'm not sure if he is anymore. I'm surprised they haven't brought in a main man up front unless they intend on playing Firmino as like an out-and-out striker this year. The one thing they have done is brought in a left-back. Andrew Robertson from Hull is decent. It frees up Milner to play in a number of different positions. As we know, he's super versatile. He can come back into the midfield. But they've also lost Lallana to injury in what could be 2, 3, 4 months of the season. It's a big loss. Lallana's one of their best players last year. All these things combined, and the fact they haven't brought in maybe a big striker or another centre-back yet, I'm going to say Liverpool are going to miss out on top 4, and they're even going to miss out on 5th. They're going to get 6th. If they sell Coutinho, and with that money they bring in Van Dijk and Lanzini, I'd say potentially they're better off. I know a lot of people love Coutinho. I'm a big Coutinho fan as well. But I think Lanzini is really promising. I've seen a lot of him. And I also think they really need a centre-back. If they can get that centre-back in, fair play. Or if they can keep Coutinho and get Van Dijk, that's also great. I still think they need a striker. For me, the one that they were linked with was Aubameyang. If they could have got Aubameyang this summer, I would be seriously tipping Liverpool for big things. But for me, they're just missing that focal point up top. In 5th place, perhaps controversially, I predicted them to finish 5th last year, and I got that one right. It's Arsenal. Now, Arsenal fans will be annoyed about this, that I think they're going to miss out on top 4 again. They probably disagree with me. Why do I think this is going to happen? Well, first and foremost, right now, they haven't actually lost anyone. They've brought in Lacazette, which is a fantastic signing in my opinion. And as I'm recording this, they've still got Alexis Sanchez, they've still got Mesut Ozil, they've still got Oxlade-Chamberlain, who's also been linked with a move away. Bellerin was linked with a move away for a long time. They've held on to those boys. So right now, their squad's just got better. And I'm not even sure they're going to lose anyone, to be honest. I think Wenger might actually hold on to them. I also think that Kolasinac is a really good addition. I thought that before the Community Shield final, where he also scored a goal. I think he's going to be an absolute tank on that left-hand side, whether it's left wing back, if they're playing the back 5, which seems to be working for them right now, whether he's playing left back, even left midfield. I think he'll do well for them. I don't think he's going to be the best player in the team, but I think he's a solid addition, certainly on a free transfer. And they're not in the Champions League this year. They are in the Europa League, which is a competition I think they can go far in, and maybe that's the best route for them getting Champions League qualification for next year, just like Man United did last season. For me, there's a chance the team that I've predicted to finish 4th could swap with Arsenal. If Arsenal keep the players they've got, and the team that I've predicted to finish 4th don't make some additions, I could potentially be persuaded to push Arsenal into 4th place again. There's definitely a chance for them. It's very, very tight. But I'm still thinking a little bit they might lose some players. And even if they don't, they have got a habit of just falling off towards the end of the season. And even if they keep Sanchez, is his heart going to be in it this year if he knows he's moving on a free at the end of the season? Are they going to get 12 months or 9, 10 months of Sanchez-like energy like they got for him the last few seasons? I'm not sure. You know, he's threatening to almost call off sick and sort of just try and force his way out of the club, maybe going on strike. It could kick off before the end of the transfer window. It could make things a little bit difficult for Arsene Wenger at Arsenal. But with his squad right now, if they don't get the top 4, they're just going to miss out. There's a chance they could. With that in mind, the team I'm predicting to finish 4th and just above Arsenal is Chelsea. Now, obviously Chelsea were the champions last season and they did it in convincing fashion. Why do I think they're going to fall down so much into 4th place this year? The first and one of the main reasons is the fact they're playing European football again. They have got a big distraction in Champions League football. They didn't have that last year, and they're very lucky they didn't have it last year because it really helped them. Their squad is not deep. They have got one of the least amount of players used in the Premier League and depth of their squad of anyone, right? And this window, in the summer transfer window, they haven't really made that squad any deeper. They've mainly just replaced people. They've made some good signings. Bakayoko, great addition, but they lost Matic and they sold him to a rival in Manchester United. That's madness to me. I can't get my head around that. I don't know why Abramovich is letting that happen. Certainly Conte didn't want it to. Likewise, they brought in Morata. Really good signing, but they're going to probably lose Diego Costa, who right now, in my opinion, is better than Morata. But Costa does come with some emotional baggage. They've brought in Rudiger. Decent signing again. They needed more centre-back reinforcements, but John Terry's retired and they've loaned out Zuma. Rudiger is probably better than both those players. When you consider they've also sold Ake, I probably would have rather had those 3 centre-backs than just Rudiger because they're going to need a deep squad. They're playing a lot of games this season. I think they're going to struggle. It's personally amazing to me that they sold Matic and then got rid of Chalobah, Luke Loftus-Cheek on loan, all these decent midfielders, and they're going to potentially bring in Danny Drinkwater from Leicester. I don't know who's doing the transfers at Chelsea. I don't know why they don't give Conte a little bit more freedom to make his own moves. And I really don't know why they're letting people go to Premier League title rivals in Manchester United. But I think those decisions could be Chelsea's downfall this year. When I say downfall, I don't think they're going to get relegated. I think they're going to still get top 4. But they're not going to get the title again, in my opinion. And I feel that they could even drop out the top 4 if Arsenal hold on to some of their big players and Chelsea don't make some signings. I'm basically assuming Chelsea are going to make some more additions. They have to, in my opinion. They need to get 2 or 3 more players minimum, particularly in their wing-back spots. If they want to keep playing this 5 at the back or 3 at the back, they need another option for Alonso. Could be Alexandro. That would be a big signing. But more importantly, right wing-back. Victor Moses played really well there last year. I don't think he's someone you can build your team around. I don't think he's someone that you can expect to play 50 games next year. And if he does, I don't think you can expect him to play 50 games well. I think he'll have 5 or 10 dodgy games in there. He's got that in him, Moses. So they really need a decent right wing back. Who that's going to be, I'm not too sure. With that in mind, it's time to find out who I think is going to finish 3rd. And I am going with Spurs. They're not going to win the title this year, unfortunately, Spurs fans. I'm sorry to break it to you. I could be wrong, of course, but this year, at most, they'll just put the pressure on. I can't really work out how I feel about their transfer policy this summer. One side of me kind of loves it, that they haven't brought anyone in. It's like they back themselves. They've got a very decent squad. Many people have said they've got the best starting 11 in the Premier League. It's just their depth as a whole squad that makes them struggle a little bit. I don't disagree. I think their starting 11 is really good. Obviously, they lost Kyle Walker and they lost him to a Premier League rival in Man City, who I've yet to predict where they're going to finish. So you can imagine they're going to be up there this year, in my opinion. I don't understand why he'd let Kyle Walker go. I know that Daniel Levy particularly backs Trippier, the right back, and Pochettino obviously likes him as well. I do think Trippier is a really good right back. And I don't think they're going to lose much by losing Walker. It's more that they've strengthened a rival in a position that Man City really needed help for. They've got a load of money for Kyle Walker. Good business, you could argue, but they haven't spent it. And they've got a really good and bad history with transfers, Tottenham. They're really good at selling players. They get great money for them. They're not good at spending that money. When they sold Bale, they bought in 7, 8 average players. You know, they brought in Sissoko for 30 million last year. He's probably going to leave this summer. I worry what they're going to spend their money on. Maybe that's why they haven't spent any money yet and they're just backing the squad they've got. They've got some good youth players coming through as well. Trippier is going to be injured for the start of the season, so they're going to have to use those youth players from the very beginning. And for me, their real issue is what happens if Harry Kane gets injured. He's been really good at staying fit for most of the season and being consistently scoring goals, golden boot for the last 2 years. Is he going to do it again? What happens if he misses 3-4 months of the season? Can Hyun-Son Min go up front? He probably can. Is he going to do what Kane can do? No, he's not. Vincent Janssen. Maybe he needs a big year. Didn't have a great one last season. He's still not going to be Harry Kane quality. Likewise, Dele Alli, Christian Eriksen, all these guys, so good. But if they're injured, the players they've got coming in, I'm not sure about them. Maybe Ross Barkley would be a good addition for Tottenham. Like Chelsea, they need a deeper squad. They need to reinforce. They don't have to necessarily go out and break the bank on one transfer and buy someone that's going to come into their first team. Because their first team is hard to get into. But they need to strengthen the squad with decent substitute options, which I don't think they have. Obviously, they're in European football again this year. I think all those things combined are going to mean they're not going to make a title push and they're going to finish 3rd. So, the last 2 spots, you might have guessed by now, are going to be going to the Manchester clubs. I also predicted that last year, and I was wrong about that. I'm going for it again this year. I'm predicting that the 2 top spots will go to the Manchester clubs. Who do I think is going to get 2nd? I'm going with Manchester United. I predicted them to win the league last year. I got that wrong by quite some way, but I did kind of anticipate that they were going to be hard to beat. I think that's something that Mourinho really instilled in them last year. Obviously won the Europa League with them, got back into the Champions League that way. I think they're going to be equally hard to beat this year, but I think they're going to have more firepower. Losing Zlatan is a big loss. We may still see him re-sign, but the addition of Lukaku is someone that just knows how to score 20 plus goals in the Premier League. And he did it in a team like Everton. He's going to get better service than Manchester United. With Pogba behind him, with the likes of Mkhitaryan, Rashford, Martial helping him out. They're going to score goals. More goals than they got last year. And I think they're going to be even better defensively with the addition of Lindelof. They haven't gone out and bought 10 players, but Manchester United had a solid squad. They didn't need to reinvent it. They just needed to strengthen certain areas. They've done it with Lindelof. They've definitely done it with Lukaku. And getting Matic from Chelsea could just be the final piece of the puzzle. Their midfield is solid now. Matic, Pogba, Herrera, such good options. Carrick can still play. He's the captain now of Manchester United. With in front of them, you've got Mkhitaryan, Mata, Rashford, who looks really good in pre-season. And they don't even seem to really put that much emphasis on Martial, but Martial, when he plays well, is unbelievable. So if he comes good a bit more this year, with the likes of Lukaku, they could be up there. And with Mourinho, you know they've got a manager who knows how to win the Premier League. I think this year he's going to come close, but he's going to miss out to Pep Guardiola at Manchester City. Why do I think this? Man City were one of the clubs, probably out of all the big clubs, that had the most obvious need for certain reinforcements in certain positions. Their defence was old, ageing, needed replacing, particularly in the fullback spots, and they've done that to a very high degree. They've spent a lot of money on it, for sure, but at this day and age, you've got to do it. When PSG are spending 200 million on Neymar, then you can spend 50 million on a defender. Kyle Walker, Mendy, these are really good additions. Danilo can play in either spots, can play in midfield. Guardiola loves versatile fullbacks. That's one of the things he's always used, the likes of Alaba and Lahm at Bayern Munich. Last year he tried it out with the likes of Sagna and Kolarov, trying a bit of time in centre-back. He's got better players in those positions now. He's also released a lot of the deadwood. Sagna gone. Zabaleta, I'm happy to have him at West Ham. I think he's West Ham quality still, but he wasn't good enough for Man City anymore. Vincent Kompany's got a big year coming up. If he can stay fit, he could lead that defence to unbelievable things. Lots of clean sheets and potentially trophies. If he gets injured again and misses games, it's probably time to call an end to his City career, I think. Maybe even his career in general, to be honest. He needs a big season with lots of games. But when he plays and when he's fit, still, in my opinion, one of the best centre-backs out there. So we talked about their defence. They've also brought in Ederson, a new goalkeeper who is young, still uncapped for Brazil, but has a lot of potential. They've still got Claudio Bravo. They've lost Caballero. They've loaned Joe Hart to West Ham. That looks like it could become a permanent deal with time. They'd be pretty unlucky if Bravo had as bad a season this year as he did last year and Ederson came in and struggled. They've got to get it right eventually, and they'll be hoping they've done that with Ederson. And of course, Bernardo Silva from Monaco is a big addition as well. He's going to come in, take some of the pressure off the likes of David Silva, who I love, but I think he's getting towards that end point in his career now. I could see him leaving maybe at the end of this season. The likes of Sterling and Sané have got some much needed competition now as well. Jesus Navas has been moved on. That was a very good decision. Yaya Toure maybe also with one last season, but still enough in his legs to help them get some big victories. Kevin De Bruyne is the main man, of course. Gabriel Jesus will have a full season at Man City for the first time. They've still got Aguero. They've lost Iheanacho, which I personally would have tried to hold on to him because they've still only really got two strikers. And if they had Iheanacho there as a third option, they've got really, really good options up front. But with Aguero and Jesus, if they're only going to play one of them at a time, that's still unbelievable strike force opportunities. And more importantly, Pep Guardiola has had a year to adapt to the Premier League now. He knows what it's about. I think he came in, I wouldn't say cocky, but he came in very aware of his abilities and very confident in his decisions. Made some big changes. Got rid of a goalkeeper who had won 2 Premier Leagues, multiple clean sheet awards in the Premier League, in Joe Hart. And so we don't need you. And I think they could have used that experience last year. Didn't play Aguero as much as he could have. This guy just scores goals for fun. I think he'll have a little bit more trust in Aguero this year, hopefully. And he also trusted their defence last year. I thought that was a big mistake when he came in. He didn't reinforce it straight away. He left the likes of Kolarov and Sagna and Clichy around. I know he brought in John Stones, but I think like this year he's actually really properly addressed the problem. And as long as they gel quickly, which I think they're good enough to, that defence could be close to unbeatable this year. So that is what I'm going for in my Premier League predictions, guys. I think Manchester City are going to win the title. But what do you guys think? I know a lot of you out there are going to disagree with me, so leave a comment below. Who do you think is going to win the league? Feel free to leave your full 20 teams in order in the comments. I'll take a look at them. Some of you might agree with me completely. Some of you might think I've got it completely wrong. I always like to hear from you guys. I'm also going to do a video predicting the European leagues and the Champions League and the Europa League as well. Maybe even the World Cup. Coming up at the end of the season, of course. Can't wait for that. And of course, I will also be doing a roundup of the transfer window when that closes in a few weeks. And maybe we'll see some drastic changes in these clubs' chances of where they're going to finish in the league based on the transfers they do in the next few weeks. Drop a like on this video if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe for more. And I'll see you soon on another video. Until then, don't go changing. Bye-bye.